Welcome back to Drunk on Writing. Today we're going to talk about the best and worst of one of my favorite annual events, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, better known as E3. Before we get started, just a friendly reminder, if you enjoy this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the Drunk on Writing YouTube channel, and if you really like it and you feel like supporting the channel, please be sure to head on over to patreon.com/drunkonwriting where you can check out a full release schedule and all of the goodies and extras that backers of Drunk on Writing get, including voting for the content that comes out each and every month. So, all that said, let's dive right in to E3. The conference officially began June 9th. But Walmart Canada decided it'd be fun to start a month early by leaking a whole bevy of potential new titles. One of those was Rage 2, which Bethesda seemingly confirmed in one of the most clever social media responses I have ever seen. Shocking no one, the next Assassin's Creed game also leaked, this time via Keychain. But it looks great! Even though its writing and dialogue still seems as shoddy and thrown together as ever.
We've been spotted! Go! I'll handle this!
Also before E3 began, Nintendo dropped a Pokebomb. Pokebomb. By announcing not just a core RPG coming next year, but Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Two 3D RPGs with Pokemon Go integration coming this year that you can control with a Pokeball. Brilliant. Not so brilliant, Microsoft again delayed Crackdown 3, this time to February 2019. Which is looking to be one of the most crowded months in gaming history. I don't care though, because I'll probably still be playing Tetris Effect, also announced before E3. All that and more happened before E3 even began. Yes, E3 is just getting longer and longer each and every year. I'll leave that to you to decide whether it's good or bad. I have a bit of a mixed feeling about it. But, leaving that aside, let's take a look at the conference itself. EA officially kicked off the E3 conferences on Saturday morning with the lovely Andrea Renee of What's Good Games and Kinda Funny rocking her hosting gig. Even though the crowd was pretty much as bad as it can get, I'd say it's probably worse than that one that Jeb Bush asked to clap. It was just horrible. Except for Respawn co-founder Vince Zampella, who was almost certainly flying a kite the whole time he was talking. But he managed to confirm a new Star Wars game called Jedi Fallen Order, so that was pretty cool. Also announced in one of the worst live demos I've ever seen on stage was a new Command & Conquer game. Sadly, the game looks fun. It just dragged on way too long and did not belong on that stage. This really should have just been the trailer, which looked amazing. I could say the same for the next EA original, Sea of Solitude, because Cornelia Geppert, the game's presenter and writer, talked far too long. But that game looks brilliant. I can't wait to play it. Which isn't something I can really say about Origin's Access Premier, EA's latest foray into subscription services, which will run you about $100 a year. Seriously, how many services do companies really expect we'll subscribe to? Though it is, it's kind of cool that the service will let members play new games before anyone else, including Anthem, which still looks great, especially with the mechs. Mechs? Is it mechs? Javelins, especially with the javelins. But after the gameplay demo, it really does feel and sound too much like a Destiny clone for its own good. So yeah, that was EA, a more traditional E3 conference than we've kind of had from everybody else the last couple of years, including some Q&As, live demos, and just far, far too much talking. And I should probably mention there were sports in there too. And that's, pretty much all I have to say about that. Microsoft was the first to kick off the big three conferences. That is, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. They kicked that off the very next day, right after EA, so that Sunday, and really started with a bang. A new Halo game. Halo Infinite. It's not Halo 6, it's Halo Infinite. Which we got no more information on, and which honestly doesn't look that great. Which makes me wonder if they're kind of taking a play out of Fortnite's book, and not so much worrying about looks, as they are simply ensuring a massive, I gotta say it, Battle Royale type game can actually be played on the Xbox console. But it's okay, you know, because we get Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which just looks stunning, as does Sable, which I wish we knew more about, but was perfectly, expertly teased in that conference. Unlike Kingdom Hearts 3, which has a completely indecipherable storyline and is astonishingly weird without sound effects.
Look out!
More on that a little later, unfortunately. Because first, we should talk about Microsoft's acquisitions. Ninja Theory, Playground Games, Undead Labs, and Compulsion Games. That's good pedigree, and it means next gen will likely have a bevy of hopefully great exclusives. Unfortunately, that means jack for this generation, which, without a permanent price cut or seemingly any major first-party title coming in the near future, other than Forza, which, to be frank, I just don't really count, I say Microsoft is basically throwing in the towel on this generation. Though there is more Cuphead, and yeah, that other Forza on the way, and of course, you know, Battletoads 2, which features couch co-op. Heck yeah, couch co-op. And then there's Gears 5, in which you'll be playing as Kate, something of a fan favorite I've never seen or heard of before this conference, but that's what I get for not really ever being interested in the series despite my brother's best efforts. Oh, and Gears of War Pop, which seems fun, but it's a mobile game and plays into Microsoft's attempt to get console-quality gaming on any device, end quote. Hinting again at the end of consoles. I like my consoles. Leave my consoles alone. And if you prefer your third-party games on Xbox, The Division 2 looks awesome, even despite the developers not knowing how to get demos to sound like actual, real people.
Look at this parachute. Dropped right through the ceiling. Let me see if I can get this.
And Jump Force? That looks even better! Despite having one of the worst names around. Unless we forget Cyberpunk 2077, which had a ridiculous-looking trailer that got me pumped to play the studio behind the Witcher trilogy's latest. I want to dive into that game. Though it sadly appears like it won't be anytime soon. Yeah. Overall, that was a really good conference. Probably Microsoft's best in years. I mean, we had a new Forza, we had a new Gears, and we had a new Halo. Those are the pillars. Those are Microsoft's pillars. And they're all present and accounted for. That's friggin' cool. And we get all those notices about all the new developers that they've acquired, promising exclusive games in the future. That's great. Hopefully next gen, things will swing back in Microsoft's favor. Now, before we talk Sony and Nintendo, there are a few other conferences that happen in between Microsoft and the others. And we should talk about them because there's some great stuff in it. First and foremost, Bethesda. Because apparently I'm a Bethesda fan. I don't really know when that happened. Bethesda, they started things off a bit differently with a cool showcase of its team. Which totally works as a recruitment video because I'm down to head there right now. But then they dovetailed into a performance by Andrew WK, whose song backed the recent Rage 2 announcement trailer. They could have shown that against the song, but chose not to. And keeping with a few other conferences, the audience didn't seem to care all that much about that. Thankfully, Rage 2 looks like a whole lot of fun, even with what sounds to be a pretty generic story. But this guy, who had a nice awkward stream moment as he either waited for the teleprompter to work or for the noise in the hall to die down, he is really, really into it. And that recap trailer for Elder Scrolls Online really makes me want to play. Though I sadly don't have any college classes to skip or a girlfriend I can ignore anymore. Yeah, MMORPGs are kind of my crack. And I really want to jump into Doom Eternal, the sequel to the 2016 reboot of sorts, which promises hell on earth and which has a name oddly similar to Halo Infinite. It must be, this new kind of meme going around. Unfortunately, though, we don't know much more than that, as the trailer is basically just a commercial for this year's QuakeCon. But then, Bethesda delivered hit after hit after hit, with Daniel Dwyer and Adam Boyes helping narrate from the background. We got a free Prey update, Mooncrash, coming in that's billed as infinitely replayable, with a slick-sounding multiplayer mode coming later this year that's also playable in VR. The standalone Wolfenstein Youngblood, starring BJ Blazkowicz's twin daughters, Jess and Soph, that's set in 1980s Paris and coming in 2019. And Wolfenstein Cyberpilot, another VR game that might just be what pushes me to pick up a VR headset if it turns out right. And, you know, after all, I followed Wolfenstein ever since Return to Castle Wolfenstein way back when. When I shouldn't have even been playing games like that. Oh, and then Bethesda played into the meme and announced Skyrim, very special edition, in what seemed to be like the most perfect mock commercial, complete with wallpaper from The Shining. And yet, it turned out to be real. You can go buy this game, download this game from Amazon. This is a real game. That is insane. As is showing the same Fallout 76 trailer as we saw at the Xbox conference. Though it did lead to the use of the word tercentenary, which is an awesome word, by the way. Like, that's your word of the night, tercentenary. Which my autocorrect somehow knew, despite continuing to get confused by the words good and food. And I know some people gave them flack for this, but this got me excited. Bethesda teased the next generation of consoles and games with Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. Which are probably at least 3 years away. Again, overall, a great conference with some great announcements. And it would probably be my conference of the show if it weren't for Devolver. Seriously, if you haven't watched Devolver's conference, do yourself a favor and fix that. The whole thing was this dark satire of video game pop beauty, and it's probably the most perfect thing I've ever seen in terms of an E3 press conference. I loved it. Unlike Square Enix's conference, which repeated a lot of content, including that same Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer. See, I told you we'd get back to that. And this whole conference it didn't seem like it needed to exist outside of serving another look at Shadow of the Tomb Raider and announcing some Final Fantasy XIV content, including a Monster Hunter World crossover. Okay, well, alright. Well, that was pretty cool. As was the start of Ubisoft's conference. In fact, it wasn't just cool, it was hot. It was amazing, and it was all about that dancing panda. And, I'm not usually one for celebrating Just Dance, but man, what a great, energetic opener. Though the second musical number, the one devoted to Mario plus Rabbids DLC, that was the exact opposite. That just killed anything. Between those musical interludes, though, Ubisoft totally delivered. They gave us a cinematic look at Beyond Good and Evil 2, which looks unbelievably pretty, and features a partnership of sorts with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's hit Record, which, he got some flack for. But problem is, Beyond Good and Evil 2, it was lacking any gameplay demo. Though I guess there were some behind closed doors demos, apparently, somewhere. I didn't really hear a whole lot about that, but, that game's far away. They also gave us a further breakdown of The Division 2, which I'm kind of itching to play the more I see of it. And more info on Skull and Bones, which, again, looks great. Even if I have zero idea if I'm playing as a ship, or someone on the ship, or something in between. From hands-on reports, it seems that latter option, but I think a beta will be absolutely necessary for this one. Ubisoft also announced it's bringing transference to consoles, where it'll be playable as usual or in VR. It looks spooky as all heck, and Frodo himself introduced it, and honestly, I just can't wait to play it. I gotta play this game. Which I'd also love to save for Starlink, but they just somehow didn't read the tea leaves and drop the Toys to Life gimmick. While it looks fun, and the figures look detailed, the models look kind of cool, and the Star Fox crossover is awesome, honestly, it's just something I think will fall by the wayside, and that's just unfortunate. I almost want to say the same about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but that location, those visuals, I'm just not sure I can. In fact, while watching this demo, I felt this was certainly the Assassin's Creed game that would finally get me to jump into the series. Until, as I said earlier, I saw this.
The rebel had guards. I relieved them.
Interesting. You thought the life of a thief and a murderer was worth more than that of soldiers doing their duty.
I wasn't even thinking about him, to be honest.
Tell me, seriously, why is dialogue and writing so hard to figure out sometimes? I guess maybe their focus is on figuring out those haystack physics? Let's move on. Sony changed things up a bit this year and announced ahead of time it would be focusing primarily on The Last of Us 2, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, and Death Stranding. AKA, they were letting us know not to expect any major surprises, any major announcements outside of those. And especially, don't expect any hardware announcements. That's what they were telling us. But still, those are 4 great titles to work with. So, there were high expectations going into this conference. And I gotta tell you, starting with The Last of Us 2 was amazing. This game is beautiful. From the environments to the characters, and the gameplay looks even better. If maybe, a little too over-the-top violent. With what looks to be genius AI. I don't know if I've ever seen AI smarter than that. Hopefully it's actually real. I think it is, but, I wasn't the only one to kind of call that out. But sadly, there was no release date, not even a vague 2019. And then that presentation was followed by a so-called intermission that dragged on way too long and was apparently even worse in person. But once we got back, we got Ghost of Tsushima, which looks, to put it simply, beautiful. It's just beauty put on a screen. But the combat, the story, the dialogue, everything else, it seemed really overly generic in that conference demo. And honestly, just a few days later, I'd completely forgotten about this part of the conference. From what I hear, the game plays great, so I think getting hands-on with it is almost going to be an absolute necessity to sell it. Between the tentpole games, we also got to look at Control, the new game from Remake Entertainment, the team behind Microsoft's exclusive Quantum Break. This looks bonkers, and I can't wait to play it. It just looks trippy as all heck. And we also got yet another look at, you guessed it, Kingdom Hearts 3, played against the very same song. Again, with the same messed up audio. Though it was paired this time with a limited edition PS4 Pro, which I'm putting as a good here, even if the design is a little meh, which is pretty much exactly how I felt during and after Death Stranding's presentation, which honestly made me lose all interest in the game, at least for the time being until, we get another video of a baby crawling out of Norman Reedus's throat. It just didn't look fun. Also of no interest to me, a fresh look at the Resident Evil 2 remake. But it was a cool trailer all told through the viewpoint of a rat that gets squished. Weird, but I liked it. Though I didn't like the dream skits or whatever they were between the games. What was the point of them? They certainly had no payoff as far as I could tell. I kept waiting for them all to kind of play some kind of an outro, but it didn't happen. But you know what did have a payoff? Spider-Man. It had a payoff in spades. We got another look at the Arkham Asylum-like gameplay and a hint as to which classic villains we'll be tackling, including that, mysterious last member of the Sinister Six, which I am hoping is Howard the Duck. Please let it be Howard the Duck. Please. The story definitely leans into its comic book origins, and that's really obvious in this demo. But that's, part of the charm, right? I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to this one, and I'm glad it got this extra showing. But I was hopeful for, a one more thing. Throwing in, say, Rocksteady's game here would have nailed the conference. Instead, it ended in probably the most awkward fashion possible. So yeah, I wasn't exactly enamored with Sony's conference, though I really loved what I saw of The Last of Us 2, and Spider-Man looks super fun. But Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding, they kind of dropped the ball for me. And I with this presentation, I really have to wonder, Are these plus Dreams really the last of the PS4 exclusives? Is this what we have left for this generation, this console? I think it might be. Nintendo rounded out the conferences with a non-conference, a Nintendo Direct, which, you know, that's what they do because Nintendo gotta be Nintendo. It started with an anime-inspired mech game called Daemon Machine that was sort of pretty, until you glanced at the background and realized just how empty the game actually is. But Super Mario Party lets you put switches together and create levels out of it. That is genius and made me completely forget about that mech game, whatever the heck it was called. Again, that sort of quirky design, that is pure Nintendo. That is something only Nintendo would come up with. As is locking content behind a physical release, this time Mew in a Pokeball. Why do they gotta keep doing this? But whatever. Switch has now joined the rest of the world and got its own version of Fortnite. Even though you can't play it if you happen to have linked your Epic account with your PSN account. And do you think there will be a Fortnite edition for the Alexa as well? Switch also got Hollow Knight, a hand-drawn Metroidvania previously only on PC, and Killer Queen Black, a port of the super popular arcade game that I apparently just absolutely need to play, but I've never seen it in any of the arcades around here, so I gotta go hunt it down somewhere. But the most important thing Nintendo dropped? Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Which, unfortunately, the Direct spent far too much time on, but screw it! This is the largest cast of characters in any Smash game. Actually, it's every character from every Smash game. And living up to its name, it looks to take pretty much everything from every past iteration of the franchise and make it better. Though it doesn't look like online play will be available at launch? I guess? Here's hoping they figure that out by December. It was a really quick content drop on the part of Nintendo, and I think probably at least half of it focused just on Smash Brothers. I think a lot of it just focused on the slight tweaks and changes that they made to the characters. Did we need a whole Direct focus on that? I don't think so, especially the E3 Direct, but Nintendo got a Nintendo, right? And it was still pretty good, which is pretty much the gist of this E3. It was overall pretty good, if not exciting or surprising, really, in any way, shape, or form. Though there was at least one surprise, I would say, and that is all the games that were missing. Like Square's Avengers game, where was that? Or Rocksteady's project, whether it's Superman, Justice League, or whatever. Or how about Horizon Zero Dawn's sequel, even just a tease for that? Or Yoshi, Borderlands 3, Bluepoint's project, Metroid Prime 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Splinter Cell, or anything from Valve. I guess maybe they're saving those for next year, just to make sure, we got something to play and we have work to do. Speaking of which, I gotta say, the best part of E3, the people. From those behind the event to the developers, the project leads, the writers and CEOs, to everyone in the press and all the streamers working tirelessly to ensure we could all watch and play and learn about all these great games. And I'd like to give a sort of special shout out to Kevin over at Kinda Funny for trying to keep that place running in spite of Windows 10, and to Steno Games for streaming Limited Run Games Conference live on YouTube, even though he barely had any idea what Limited Run Games is. You guys made my E3. And I think that's probably all from me for today. I think that was quite a lot. So, again, if you like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the Drunk on Riding YouTube channel, or head on over to patreon.com/drunkonriding. Check out the full release schedule there. Vote for what content is coming. Sign up for all the extras and goodies. Do your thing, And if you had any thoughts on E3 2018, if you thought there was something amazing that I happened to miss, or if there's something just so radically bad that I happened to miss, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But, until then, and until next time, cheers, and keep on riding.